Hey, family, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Love and Worship Podcast here with your friend Kingsley Case. And I am talking to you now more about the book that I wrote called The Course of Life. And why I wrote the book, what made me want to journey down this lane with working this book and bringing it forward to fruition. And also, I want to talk more about my music journey and what plans that I have this year. I can't give you all a sip, but I can give you a little something. One of the things I want to touch about the book and the reason why I wrote the book, I kind of touched a little bit on it in the few episodes that we had before. But this time around, what I really want to do, I want us to kind of just take some steps back and understand what I'm talking about when I say taking a pause. I digged a little deeper on it in one of the episodes, but I want to kind of like let you guys know why I took the stance on why taking a pause is so positive to your growth, to your life, to your marriage, to your friendships, to your family, to your community, and what that means to be able to take that perspective, look deeper inside, and say, I'm going to say yes to living a positive life. I'm going to take all of the energy that I would have contributed to hating on someone, to making hate tapes, to making bits and pieces about hate. And I'm going to take that energy and designate it into a place that promotes living and a positive life. One of the things I thought about it was that a lot of the earlier books, like one of my books, The Reason for Your Love, that you can find on Amazon, it was with pages of my life and talking about the journeys and stuff like that, and the people who I grew up with, the people I love, the people who I remember. And I kind of described that journey as trying to present a lifestyle of worship and saying that this is what a lifestyle of worship should be like. But while I'm talking about this lifestyle worship, I'm also addressing the fact that my relationship was falling apart. And I had to take a serious, vulnerable step forward, knowing that I was going to get bruises from it, knowing that perspective was going to be thrown against me, and knowing that I was going to come into the time where, yeah, it's always typical the guy would try to blame somebody for his mistakes other than my own missteps. But this lesson that I'm presenting now with the course of life is taking few steps, looking at everything that happened along the way and saying, hey, you know what? Yes, I made some missteps. Yes, I know I've made some missteps. But if I keep on placing these missteps as if they're going to be magnified in my life, and I'm always going to focus on these missteps as if they describe me and they are me, then I will become my mistakes. My mistakes are my choices. They are not who I am. If you continue to live in your mistakes will become you. And so I decided after a while of recovering from broken hearts, painful broken hearts, walking away from things that I would consider as shame and deep shame and wounds, and then also trying to fulfill promises and connect with friends who I know that can be very helpful in my relationship, not only with God, but my relationship with them and the greater community for the greater good, and wanting to do something significantly positive. And because that window of opportunity started to dwindle away based upon status, based upon I guess, where I'm at, who I'm connected to, and also based upon life situations. You know, you have friends who started families, you have friends who are single parents, you have friends who have gone through brokenness, gone through painful experiences of betrayal and commitments that fell through, and also knowing that when they were in need, those friends who said they would be there weren't there. And it's given them a perspective on reality to saying that, you know, you really have to put your trust somewhere else. And so when I talked about in the last episode about having a renewed trust, I'm not talking about a renewed trust And friendships alone, I'm really talking about that renewed trust in God and knowing that He is the one where we have to put our trust in and take some steps back, take a few pauses where we can review. And when we take this review and this perspective this time around, like we literally consider everything that's transpired, all the things that and events that we've experienced, and we look at it from a personal standpoint that, look, I need to make a positive impact, not just in my niece's life and my nephew's life and my brother's life and my sister's life and in my in-laws life and my adopted family's life and my church family's life, not and just in my friend's life. I need to make a positive impact in my life. I need to steward the things that I've been given, and I need to steward those things properly. And so I had to take some steps back and a pause. And then I heard my dad's testimony. My dad shared a testimony, and this is in the process of me writing the book, The Course of Life. I've always had the title, it was there. I had it there this whole time. It's just, I was waiting. What was I waiting for? I was waiting to be married, waiting to have kids, have this new house, new car, new career, something to talk about of significance to show the generation that's behind me, the generations that's also with me, the generations that's before me, to say that God does fulfill promises, to show something to say that God is real and Christianity is a real place, or discipleship is a real place, above saying that Christianity is a real place. And when I got to that stage, I was like, oh my goodness, honestly, Christianity is not a real place. I've been through countless relationships with other believers and dealings to come to say that it is literally not a real place. Christianity itself is just a title. It's really not a living. Worship is a living. How you love somebody is a living. How you take care of that person is a living. Christianity has this legalistic thing, and it really was a bad word. I mean, the Romans came up with it just the way the kind of signaled them out, because they didn't want to name Jesus. They didn't want to say Jesus followers. They didn't want to. They didn't want to give that name any more power that it had. So they had to come up with some sort of name that it would have been secular known to them. Well, since they call him the Christ, let's call them Ians. They're his Ians, his little aliens. They're his little children. Since they want to be children of him, then we can claim that we are too. And it was like almost like a mockery. It was this joke. It was this thing of trying to make the disciples more glory and glorified, and being this new group now set you apart from all these other entities, or they place you in this group, which is also a part of Darwinism and Marxism. So you have Darwinism, you have Marxism, that's putting all these people in these groups. You have all these things that are going on, these societal things that are still being allowed in this said form doctrine of now Christianity, which comes out of, you would say, the Roman Church or whatever in case may be. And throughout countless history, they're slaughtering Muslims, they're killing all these people, and all these things are going on in history. And I mean, it's going back and forth. You have the Muslims now feeling as of, hey, look, now we got to retaliate, we got to take back, our lands. We got to take back whatever our heritage is, all these things that we've lost because we were going about it this way. And we want to free our people. And then you have the Christians who are saying this doctrine, this thing that you guys believe, is of the devil. And you guys, they're dehumanizing people. And that is what I think when I hear the name Christian. Even though I say, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian and stuff like that, it's based upon what the world standards of recognizing that if you're a believer of Jesus, you'll call yourself a Christian. However, there are countless people who are identified as being Christian based upon the fact that they go to a church, which is a Catholic church. And so they would say, well, I'm a part of the Catholic Church, or I identify with this form of belief. I do not identify with anything outside of that. I identify with this form of belief. And so I am under the impression that this is where this is where all the luster comes into play, where we start beginning to glorify ourselves, and then we start to do things and acting things, which those things create a reaction, and then some of them have an inverse or inverse effect on our lives later on, and we don't learn from it, and then we got it finally, and it seems as if some of us it waits until it reaches our adulthood, that we start acting out, or some of us we get it when we're children and we get all of that out of our systems, and then when we become older and mature, we're so disciplined that we stay in line to the visions and all the encouragement that we receive over the years from the people who love us most. And what I'm saying is that when you call yourself a disciple, it's saying that you really understand the teachings of Jesus and you accept those teachings of Jesus as truth. You're really saying that, hey, I want to be like him. I want to be guided by the teachings of Jesus. I'm going to follow Jesus. I am going to abide by those teachings and those disciplines and those principles that Jesus left us. And Jesus is the way, the only way to heaven. And so when I started thinking about the course of life, I was like, how can I write this from my journey to present this to the greater public without it becoming all foggy? And the first thing I was like, I want to start with something else, but I don't want to write another my dad's story and what my dad did and where he came from and all this other stuff. I didn't want to do another one of those stories because I did that in The Reason for Your Love. I kind of described that, and then I did it again just a little bit just to kind of beg him up of his father. But I felt like there are a lot of young people who are never going to read this book. There are a lot of people who are not even going to know like a book like that exists. And so I said to myself, if I'm hoping younger generations and generations who might not have the time to read a 30 or 200 page book, if they're going to get tired looking at a 200 page book and they're going to be exhausted after they've read 20 minutes or an hour of reading, I want to limit this. And I started that in 2023, where I said to myself, well, this book in 23 I write, it's going to be the last one that has so many crazy pages. I want to shorten my chapters down to like 7 to 13 chapters. And I want those chapters to be short enough that when people read them, they don't feel as if that they're reading a book that's disjointed or needs a lot more editorial attention. I wanted to give them something that they can hold on to as real and authentic from somebody who's lived life, who's still living life, who still doesn't have it all figured out, because nobody does. And that's the truth. The truth is nobody does. It's just that people who serve Jesus and who really believe in Jesus, those are the people who really do know who has it figured out. And it's Jesus. Jesus came into this world and he had it figured out. Everything he said was going to happen, happened. Everything he said he was going to do, he did. Every promise that he made, he kept. Every word he gave still has a greater impact to this very day. And I thought about that. So I really need to take a pause, because have you taken a pause to appreciate yourself, to appreciate the journey that you're in? And who made me get to that point? Hearing my father get up there, testify in church, sharing his testimony, as many times me and my father spoken and stuff like that. For the first time in my life, I heard my dad talked about being a garbage collector. This is how humble my father is. My humble father has walked his journey of life so consistent all of his life. From the time he was a garbage collector, he kept a smile on his face. To this day, he still smiles. To this day, he's still humble. To this day, he still loves people. To this day, he still opens up his arms. If someone calls him with a need or something like that, and if he can meet that need, he would help. But I would say at 82 years of age, I would hope that people are making commitments to be of help to him, for his service for those 70 years. And I think for these last 12 years, leading to his 82 birthday this year, he's going to be 83, God willing. We hope 12 more years, and gifted him even more. And we don't know how many more years he's going to gift him with, but we know that God's blessings has been with him. And he has endured. He has endured. He has seen brutal things. My dad has seen boats explode. My dad has experienced losing part of a finger that had to been sewed back on. My dad has experienced not only being a garbage collection, but he's also been here long enough to know when Bahamas Air was not even Bahamas Air, and serving them and working for them, where he was offered shares, gotten shares, and never collected those shares. But I'm pretty sure those shares are still out there somewhere with his name on it. But someone would have to reckon on that. And I'm not making this up. I'm telling you it's truthful. Like, people back in the day when it was changing over to the new name of Bahamas Air, the company, as they're being bought out, the shares were being offered to the workers. And he had an opportunity to not only claim or sell those shares, he had an opportunity to go and collect the shares that was in his name, that they were offering their stars as I guess not a retirement or some sort of package deal, whatever the case may be. And my dad just went on to be a property manager, but he did multiple things. He just didn't serve as a garbage collector guy. He also served as a pump attendant, helper kind of person that goes out there, like handy guy that's at the gas station. Back in the day, you go to the gas station, these guys check your everything. I don't know if they have those service stations in all of the states in America, or whether they have those service stations like that in the Bahamas still, where it's unique that you go to a gas station and they still have a service port that's right on the gas station. I felt like back in the day, it made being a mechanic back in the day like so glorious. Like, they were looked upon like saviors of the trade, because these guys, when you took you needed a tire replacement, you need brakes replacement, you needed an oil change or something like that. These were the guys, when you went to the gas station, those guys checked everything. They made sure you were set. They told you what your car sounded like. They said, hey, you might have to change this, or your Catholic converter sounds like it's on its way out. Whatever that was, it was such a caring opportunity beyond the money, because everybody was in it to win. Everybody was in it to win together, because they knew what it was like to go through suffrage. And my father knew that. My father is witness Salinan Pilnin, the Bahamas coming into independence. My father was a witness to when Martin Luther King was shot dead. My father is a witness to many things, many first things that's happened around the world. Even Nelson Mandela being freed. I mean, it's so nuts that we have generations now in this world that don't even know about the assassination of Martin Luther King, or Nelson Mandela, or apartheid, or any of these things. And when I heard my father's story, it just humbled me to show that his service, his character of a man, shapes me. And that kind of gave me a perspective to, like, if you pause, you would literally see more. You would hear more. You would be able to take a step back from yourself and realize that all the things that you've been trying to control, God has ultimately always been there. He has always been the one paving the way, making a way out of nowhere. And you're still trying to put your hand in it and say, God, let me do this for you. Let me do this for you, God. I got it. I got it, man. I got it, God. I can hold it down. God, don't worry about it. I got it. You gave me the power. You gave me all these things to do. I have the abilities. I'm going to go at it. And I'm like, But you're going at it. Are you really including God when you're going at it? Or are you thinking about, man, I'm going to do this because I need to make this amount of money to pay my bills? And you never even prayed about it. You didn't even put it before God and prayed about it. You didn't even give God the day. You didn't even wake up in that day and say, God, I thank you. I thank you for where you brought my father from. I thank you for the elevation that you've given in his life. I thank you that because of him, I am the man that I am now. That I can be the man that I needed to be years ago now. But in God's frame, he had everything built the way in your life, leading you to become, still to become the man that you're supposed to be now. This is where in chapter 1, it just gives me chills. It gives me so much chills because the uniqueness is about that smile. It's that smile that my father kept. Like, I'll tell you something. My father's name is not Charlie. My father's name is Lelio. Lelio. Not Lil. Lelio. Lelio. Charles. Two names. So you either call him Charles or you call him Lelio. If you don't know how to say Lelio, then just call him Charles. That's the proper thing to do. But when a guy who is like 40 years younger than my father calls my father Charlie, 30 years younger than my father, call him Charlie, and my dad is Mr. Charles to him, or Charles to him, or Lelio, or just call him Leo, just call him Leo, for me to see that happen in his journey and be and see that, it was like my dad endured all that, and this generation of people who don't have a value of respect and honor did that, and they continued it because people who had misdealings and who wanted to oppress my father, still oppress him because he was doing so well and exceeding, they found ways of trying to oppress him, pressing a name or saying, "Hey, you're too much of a Haitian to have all of this good stuff." So I'm just like, how do I get over this period of my life where I was, basically attacked for, I would say, 90% of my junior year. 90% of my 14 years of my living on this island, I was treated as if I was not human. And I'm not talking about like church people and stuff like that. I'm just talking about the character that people just made you feel like you were less Bahamian. You were not Bahamian enough. You were never a Bahamian. You will never be accepted as a Bahamian. Yet my father, his testimony, he started the pages. And he started the pages. He made the move to the Bahamas. He saw how beautiful my mom was and was like, hey, I got to marry this woman. you know? As credible as that made me smile. It made me feel so good because I was like, if my father can endure all of that, back then is not as bad as what it is now. It's way much more worse than it was back then. And people fail to understand that. People assume that back then was way more worse than it is now based upon the circumstances of availability, opportunity, and gains and restrictions and stuff like that, and who was ruling. But all this stuff, people now, they hate you. And they could hate you so much that they could keep you from ever earning a living. Like literally, like they literally will set out their whole life to, really to block you from succeeding. And people who know that they've been called to sow into your life, be a part of your life, and also help you during the journey, reject the help. They say to God, "No, God, you're gonna just do something different for me." And then all the headache and everything they're going through, even with the losses. I've seen this. I've literally seen this, and I hate I hate to bring this up, but one of the things I've seen, and I'll tell you this, and I remember me reaching out, and I always I was so frightened. I felt like this is the first time in my life where God has ever asked me to do something outside of doing music again, where my stage frightness showed up. And I remember just being that kid again, where I felt like, God, I've worked for just about everything I've ever had in my life. And then God was like, really? Did you really work for everything you've ever been given in your life? And I was like, well, God, well, you got me there. You got me there. There's some things that you did for me that I cannot describe. How you brought me out of those things, and how you were able to supply those needs when I needed those needs, because you were that miracle worker in my life. And it's because I allowed you to be that. And he only asked me to ask. And he gave me a number, because the number one thing was that, one, I needed a new guitar. And two, I needed to do the album. And I needed so much just a kid jumpstart the music career without it being able to get blocked or halted, because you're going to be up against some things. You're going to have people who just going to be people. And if something that God has asked you to do, you're going to be up against some things, like literally. And so it's always good to have a village, good to have partners, people who love you. And this was where I felt like there was a little bit confusion. I didn't place the burden on them as if this was something they had to do. And I never wanted to ask them in the first place. But when God gave me their names and say, hey, go reach out to them, this would be their seed into your life. And their seed into your life is going to be their breakthrough in every single place in their life. Their seed into your life will be their breakthrough. And I was like, God, how do you tell people that? How do you go to people and tell them, hey, you seed into this young person right now? That will be the biggest breakthrough you would ever have. And I remember that season, they said no. And they gave me the why, and I understood it, and I was okay with that. But I remember after they had said no, I felt like the impression towards me and then also towards my career and me wanting to pursue something had changed or shifted. And that whole me asking just put me in a different space. And I'm like, I've always been the guy that I will work to get it. Like, that has been my motto. And so every time I've ever been thrown in that box as if I've never worked to gotten where I've become or where I've gotten to, I'm like, devil, you are a liar. I've worked my entire life to accomplish whatever I needed to accomplish. People who sowed into my those seed or seeded into my future and stuff like that, they seeded in the fact that I was ready working and sowing into their lives. That's just the truth. If they're not my parents, I'm telling you this. I'm not cherry coating this at all. If they're not my parents, if they are not my parents at all, no person in my entire life has ever sowed into my life who I have not been a part of their lives in some form or some way, where I've sowed my seeds. Whether I've sowed my seeds in bleeding hands as a child, cutting their grass, and they didn't know I was on those fields, cutting their grass and clipping their trees. Whether they didn't know I was tilling their soils and planting new trees, or painting their houses, or putting in carpet on the ground. Whether they didn't know that because I was a part of the company that they hired me at, the company started to prosper in ways that it had never prospered before and advanced before. And that's just the truth. And I knew that that was the shine that God had given me, that ability that I've been given. But I've always been humble about that throughout my entire life. I've never been that kind of person to be like, oh, without me, you're going to be nothing. Really? Like that's like you leaving a church. If you leave a church, the church is still going to be there. So if you leave a career, somebody else is going to fill that seat. They may never be a you again. That's like Michael Jackson. Like, who's going to be another Michael Jackson? There's never going to be another Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is Michael Jackson and always will be. People compare Michael Jackson to Chris Brown. And I'm like, yeah, he's a great artist. But Michael Jackson, there will never be another Michael Jackson. The fact that if Michael Jackson went into a city, he went into a city just to say that he was in a city. He had I'm not talking about hundreds. He had blocks upon blocks of people just trying to get a glimpse or just wanting to hear something. That's how ridiculously insane it was that to have Michael Jackson in your neighborhood. When Michael Jackson came to Bahamas for the grand opening of Atlantis, I was a part of that show, working in a floral shop with these executives of designers, people who you will never meet on a daily basis. These are people who are well known globally. I mean, they were the people, and then I'm decorating the stage and helping with the decorations on the stage. And BB Wine is kind enough to be like, hey, how you doing? All is well, blah, blah. And then you meet all the other celebrities who are there. You accidentally bump into Mariah Carey. Yes, I'm that guy. And then you see this trail load of officers. It is crazy. Trail load of officers. And people who come out of nowhere. This trail load of officers and people who come out of nowhere as Michael Jackson is walking to the stage. That should tell you that no, there's not going to be another Michael Jackson. There will always be another somebody, but not another Michael Jackson. He was the only one and the only him that will ever be. But there will be another somebody, and you're a somebody. And that's where God was reviving inside of me and wanting me to say to somebody out there, saying that, hey, look, you are a somebody. And my father proved that. He knew that he was a somebody. He knew that God had given him life. He knew that he deserved success just like anybody. And he willingly served as a man would, not only to provide a future for himself, but also to provide a future for my mom and then his children. And then later on, it became the community when he served as pastor. It became the church and the community. I'm just going to say it out there. I'm just if you want to take a stance on something, take a stance on always remembering that when God asks you to do something, you do it. And you do it willingly. You do it without relent. And you just understand that, look, this might be the stupidest thing God has ever asked me to do. That's like when in the Bible, yes, there was literally a person that was asked to put themselves in mud and then go in the mud and wash themselves off 7 times. And they were like, this is ludicrous. I am this honorable man. Yet, but you have this leprosy, this thing on your body. And you can't serve the military like that. You can't serve. Where you can serve? You probably don't even want to be seen. Your man they'll disown you. You lose everything. So you went to get healing from a man that knew God and only asked to do one thing, something that was very embarrassing, something that would have humbled anybody and bring them down. A lot of people have said no. They've been so stuck on their pride and they would have said no. But this man, all he did was I'm going to do it. And the 7th time he came out, no source, no nothing. And this is why I always come up and say, and I think it's possibly in the millions, but I knew right then and there, it was in that moment, I was like, God, are you sure? You sure you want me to go and do this? And I noticed that just people taking their choice and saying, well, we're not going to do this for him, but we're going to do this for this person we want to do this for. Not realizing that the person who God wanted them to do it for is the person who walked up to them and they said no to. And I had to even come to terms with that. If I can't do it, I'm going to let you know that I can't do it. I mean, and if I have it and I can do it, I'm going to do it. That's always been me. If I have it and I can do it, I'm going to do it. If I can't do it, it's because I don't have it to do it. A lot of people don't get that. Not everybody says no because they don't want to. A lot of people say no because they just don't have it to do it. Or they're just not set up in that way where they're thinking that, hey, look, this will be best for me to do it. I mean, most people are ready. Like if I'm that person and I've been that person who've journeyed my entire life to be where I am, it frightens me every time somebody comes up and says, hey, need to take a piece of this. And I'm still thinking, no, I need to do more things to get further to a place where I can maintain. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know what you want to do. And I did write about that, I did write about that because the way I wrote about it, I told the truth. I was like, why would you say something that impressions me that you would assist? And then when I called you out on that to ask you to support this journey of mine, man, that means that you could have been an investor or whatever the case may be. You could have been a partner in that. But then you take it back as if I'm not worth it. I'm not worth that investment anymore, or something has changed and you decide to change your mind. But the seed that you're supposed to seed in my life, that you're meant to seed in my life, you've already committed to that spiritually. You didn't even know you did, but you committed to it, and you didn't honor it. And that was the thing for me that struck me. And I was like, God, I don't want to be that to nobody right now. And I felt that last year when I had my Christmas concert with the Love and Worship Experience, and I'd made a commitment in trying to organize and do certain things, especially with honoring. One of the commitments I set, because I was still trying to get a manager, still trying to get someone to manage me and whatever and stuff like that. And the person who I've been reaching out to is probably one of the most capable persons that I know to this day. Still, and I honestly believe that anything they set their mind to, they can achieve. That's just the way I see it. And I knew that I needed their help and assistance. And I knew that was going to cost me something to do it. So I'm trying to accumulate all of this. On top of that, paying off an album. I'm talking more about the music journey now. Paying off an album, making things work with trying to project how to get other singles out. And then I pulled back on a few singles I wanted to release because I wanted to push these artists off first and really introduce them to people, because these persons are amazing people and they're good-hearted people, and they don't have that, I would say, even if they have hurt, they don't have that perception of animosity or jealousy or envy and that foolishness that's going on. They're very humble people who are willing to work, people who are willing to care for and serve, and they've been serving. They're worth it, every single dime. And so my sacrifices so far has been just trying to propel that and make sure that the promises I've made prior to that promise I made with her, those promises would be met. And well, I thought about that show. I was like, you know what? Wow. I thought about that show. I was like, man, you know what? Me trying to do it myself. And I'll show you what I meant by doing it myself. During the short period of time that I accomplished a lot of stuff, especially for the project and Love and Worship process, I had to take out advances. And this was with like a friend of mine. A friend of mine was willing to advance me a certain amount of cash in order for me to make these things happen. And I was able to make those things happen. And each time I made those things happen, I still had to pay back that advancement. it was an advancement where I couldn't pay it back. It was an advancement saying that, hey, look, it's going to take you a while to get to a point where this is so consistent that you will no longer need this advancement. And as much as I thought about it, I said, the truth is, people, whether they believe in you or not, most people in this day and age have so much going on, it's hard for them to even consider investing into their friends. And people usually only do it when disasters happen. Like, look at the California fires. Everybody is trying to give something, donating something. You have people donating through, you can donate to the fires through PayPal right now. You can donate through GoFundMe on various pages. I've shared one the other day. I was supposed to share a PayPal link on my page the other day. And there's other initiatives here in the Bahamas, and there's other organizations that also need funding too. You have the Young Life organization. You have a lot of these organizations that need funding to propel youths to help with growth, that helps with community building, that helps with a lot of stuff that's going on. And I think like what's been happening, and even the church that I've been serving, I mean, they have stuff that needs help with. And when you think about the amount of members in the Bahamas, I always come to this notion that, look, if every member, which is hard because most of the members that are probably sustaining the church right now are probably the retirees. 90% are probably retirees. And those retirees are making sure that every month they put something in the offering pan or whatever they're given. And that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And the younger generation that's right now with me, age wise, that are in positions of influence and to pay tithes of certain amounts or whatever the case may be, I don't think their focus is mainly on understanding the structure of sustainment. So after a while, people kind of get caught up with a lot of other things going on in their personal lives. And so when they are finally met with a situation that's seeding, where you have the seed, in order to see a major breakthrough, a lot of people don't believe in that. A lot of people think it's honestly not true. They think that because they believe in God themselves, then God should tell them that they need to give this person the seed. And God needs to say that to them. But I'm like, a lot of people don't even try the spirit. And if you're a person that you're a sometimey Christian, you're not a consistent believer. You have the label of Christianity, but your action says otherwise, that you like to go to heaven, but you honestly don't really know whether or not there's a heaven, or you don't believe that you're still in the agnostic stage of your relationship with God, or you're not even in that stage. You're a person that goes to church on a Sunday. You know about church on Sunday. You read your Bible or something, or you like those little Bible verses and quotes, but they got to be positive. They can't be nothing that's going to talk about you need to turn away from your sinful ways or nothing like that. It can't be anything like that. It has to be love and money. It has to be like, you're going to get more money, or, oh, there's so much love in heaven, and you deserve love and love this and hope that. And when it comes to long suffering, they're like, no, I want that. I don't want to hear nothing about no long suffering. I don't want to hear nothing about no taking care of homeless and feed the poor. So you got some things that do. I know this is probably a deep exaggeration, but you have beautiful people in the world, the most amazing people in the world. They usually don't get that part until they're on their last pages of life. There's just still some things I have to honor right now. Like, one of the biggest things I have to honor is my student loans. I have student loan with the bank, and since my unemployment from the company I worked for in 2022, that was a rough time for me, and all of the delayment I was experiencing with things hooking me up, or people just I guess blacklisting me according to just a family or just, and they want to say it's because maybe towards my actions. But it's ridiculous. Like, let's just be honest. Like, if you looked at their actions, they should be blacklisted. I mean, because some of them is still making actions that should blacklist them just from humanity. But I mean, when I look at grace, I say to myself, God, I'm going to put myself in a state of mind where I can be in a position to share stories that are going to help people to be not just realistic. Because everyone is like, oh, you have to be a realist. Oh, you have to be a realist. I'm saying you could be so realist that you will not recognize the spirit and the truth. There are musicians right now, and that I know in the Bahamas, that do successfully earn 5,000 and above every month. I'm not joking when I said I'm kidding you. I'm not joking when I said I'm not kidding you. I know I said I'm kidding you, but I'm not kidding you. I'm serious. This does happen, and there's places around the world where it happens. But the sacrifices they've had to make in order to do this consistently, that's been the question. And I guess, I'm not going to stay too long on this subject, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you think about those ones who are succeeding, and then you look at the ones who are still struggling, they got to work 2 and 3 jobs and stuff like that. And then persons like me who have been in the music industry, who's, successful, you know, everything I hear in the Bahamas is like, if you ain't playing cover songs, you're not willing to play in the clubs, not willing to go and join the cover bands and play guitar for this one and that one, not willing to go and sing the secular songs that, the majority of tourists want to hear when they come down, then you're not going to make that kind of money. You want to be in a church? The church is not going to recognize you and honor you or respect the nature of what you do to pay you a salary. They're going to say, "We can't afford you. The church is not in the business of making money." And I'm like, if the church is not in the business of making money, then quote, tell me you don't receive any money on Sundays. Tell me that somebody just writes you a check or somebody just goes to the BPL and just pays your bill every month. And somebody goes and makes sure whenever the equipment goes down, just purchases the church a new equipment. Tell me that's how it works. No, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. The church is really in the business of making money. There's no way the church can function without making money. That makes absolutely no sense. There's no way, nonprofit or not, the church cannot operate without receiving some sort of tithe, some sort of giving to help it to maintain the building, the structure, the grass, to make sure they're not rats, to make sure they're not termites, make sure the bathrooms have toilet paper, to make sure there's running water. I mean, think about all these things, to make sure that the lights are on, to make sure that when a child needs food or a family is been kicked out and they have nowhere to be, that there is some sort of stipend that can facilitate that family. That's a part of the church. The nurture, to have programs where they go out and help the sick and they give to the sick and the seniors who are shut-ins and the people who don't have nowhere to go. So this whole philosophy that the legalistic side of doctrine that tries to oppress the idea that the church cannot do, it's false. It's a false narrative. There is no way a church can operate that way unless everybody in that church is well off to just continue. They just only meet up just a fellowship. Everyone in that church is just a fellowship, which means that everybody in the church, the only thing they do is that they just make sure that all the expenses of the church and the structure of the church and the building is taken care of. And if that's the case, then we can just go and meet at someone's home on a Sunday. We can just go and play guitar at someone's house on a Sunday and then switch it up. We could just go build this fancy bake house and just do that. Why do we have to meet in this place that has a label, a title? Why do we have to do that? And that comes back to understanding that we decided that we needed to do it because people probably didn't want a lot of strangers in their houses or something like that. And they just didn't want to have that consistent argument. And they wanted to build room and call it a fellowship. And it started off with a true sense of really building life and rejuvenating lives. And over the years, we're getting back to that. Like, I know the church that I'm serving at, like, one of the things I see there is that everybody's willing to give their share and trying to help and make sure that we have stuff, we have better equipment, we have the lights are on, we can come somewhere where it's a place that's safe, a place that's a safe haven, and it's also a hurricane shelter. So it's so many things about the location that allows us and provides for us to be something and be somewhere. And I guess all I'm saying is that ultimately, I think we really all deserve to take a pause and look at why all these things are the way they are, so that we can understand that the course of life leads us really honestly to glorify God and really be thankful, to be grateful, to have some sort of gratitude, to have a form of posture with our hearts where we love people more, we care about people more, regardless if they answer that call in their lives. And I really felt like, until I leave this planet, the only person who they're gonna believe is God Himself. So I said, you know what? Let me not fight this battle anymore. And when I stopped fighting, I was just like, I started trashing myself. I started, just letting myself go and wasn't caring about what sort of people I was meeting or people who wanted to be in a relationship with me. Didn't care who I was sitting on a boat with or talking to about stuff. I was just at a place where I had no care about my soul and where it was ending up. Because after the heartbreak and the deterioration of everything that I sought to believe in as real, as functional, as genuine, I saw as now a building of oppression, a building of just a form of utter darkness that's crept in so many establishments, that people who forgot what it is to love and to cherish have now decided that no, I don't have time for you, and I'm not going to have time for you because you're no longer viewed as a person that I consider as a person, or you're going to hurt me, or you're going to do this to me. I'm like, I can't imagine Jesus being like that. I really couldn't imagine. I'm not saying that we're Jesus, but as disciples, we ought to be like Him. So, and He's the one who's saying that we're going to do greater things. So the fact that, like, when I go to church, I listen to my godmother every time when she shares her sad stories. When she opens up and she shares something that's heart wrenching and really sad, painfully sad, and hurtful sometimes, because I do it because the love that I have for my godmother, the love that I know that she is sharing her week. She's opening up. She was releasing that burden off of her. And I'm not saying I'm the dump and I can trash it and I'm willing to receive everyone's trash on me. What I'm saying is that I take it to Jesus. I really take it to Jesus. I listen. I hear them out. When my youths have to talk about how their weeks were and they have to open up about something or share something, and I have to listen to that story. As much as I might know that will be painful for me to know that someone's hurting them or they've been hurt or something like that is troubling them in their lives, the truth is, I'm in a position right now where I have an opportunity to pray with them. I can listen. I can relieve that stress off of them before they go and they get to a point where they want to commit suicide or take their lives or feel as if they're not worthy and they're not loved. And I think about that when it comes to positioning people, when it comes to promoting people, when it comes to recognizing people, when it comes to using people to their capacity, using people for who their gifts, like who God called them to be, and sowing into their lives. Every I'll tell you how good my church is. My church, they're trying. They decided that, the various individuals, like, and they, whenever they could, they would try to do a little handshake thing, a little something. And I will tell you, when they asked me to go and be there for these young people, I was like, well, God, you provided a way for me to talk on my phone, for me to have a little something and contribute a little something here and there. And then I saw this great need with the youths. And because I saw that great need with the youths, I was like, you know what? Let me sow into these youths. Because, I mean, right now, I don't know if there's a youth budget. I don't know if there's financing that the church has to contribute, $150 to $200 a week for every youths we meet up with, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take anywhere from between 250 to about $1,000 from a week to a month's time. I'm talking about like 250 to $1,000, 250 every week, possibly $1,000 every month or more to maintain the concept of youth nights and stuff like that, and understanding how you maintain that, because you're building a new social environment, a new fellowship. You're building a fellowship of people who want to come to somewhere, who want to be a part of something that's positive, something that's renewable, and something that's going to help them feel safe, something that's going to help them propel, something that's going to bring them closer to Jesus in a way that they won't get it at home, they won't get it at school, they won't get it in their community. I mean, and not like no one in the community knows Jesus. Get it in the sense of like they're already faced with a lot. So when they come here, they don't need to be faced with someone saying to them, "Oh, I know you're sinning. I know you're sinning. I know you out there, you sinning. You need to stop sinning." No, they need to come in there and say, "Hey, look, we need to go to Jesus." You have to show them how to get to Jesus. And you have to be real with them. You have to give them the meat well as the milk. If you're always giving them milk and cookies and no meat, I'm telling you, when they get out there and people start asking them about quoting Bible verses and all kind of stuff, they're not going to know how to do that stuff. They're going to think that stuff is not meaningful to do, you know. And I'm like, you really do need to know the words of Jesus. You need to know the Bible by heart, because when you really start going through, that's what's going to pull you through and deliver you. And so I thought about that and I was like, hey, they're giving me a seed and I'm going to do what I need to do so that the youths could still consistently reach me. But I'm going to pour 90% of this back in, because until I know that there is a youth budget and I know that there is a developed youth budget and I know that I have access to this youth budget to do these other things for these youths, and there's that much care that's put in here to structure wise to take care of these youths in that department, then I know my youths, if I have to walk away and somebody else takes that mantle, they will be aware that, hey, there's also a budget, that they don't have to walk it out alone, that they're not coming out of their personal earnings, that they have to go and put food on their tables, that they probably pay off their student loans and stuff like that. And they're coming out of pocket and making this sacrifice. And then they're saying, God is going to provide a way. And I'm like, God is already providing a way. Why do you think people give to the church? People don't give to the church just because they give to church for one person. People give to church in hope that it will go towards many other facets of the church and every other things. And all that stuff has to be worked out. That has to be a literal balance. And it takes time. And when you come with a church that's been through bruises, a church that is walking through this and starting over and starting afresh and rebuilding and still growing, there's a lot of development that's going to happen. And you don't hope to say, like, when you get in a position, you'd be like, oh, this should have been here. No, no. Like, that's the view that causes you to go back 10 steps. The view you should have right now is that, look, I have an opportunity to sow the seed. And I could tell you this right now. From I started sowing this seed and giving, without question, I can tell you, I've seen the move of God. I've seen the youth department grow. I've seen talent come out. I'm seeing talent manifesting. I'm seeing people who have not had a harvest in a while are now experiencing a harvest. I'm seeing the blessings align with the vision of the leaders. And I'm like, all because I said to myself, well, I'm not going to keep all this goodness to myself. And because I heard that took a pause and I took a really hard review. And I said, look, if I'm asking for people to answer the call when God tells us to sow a seed into someone's life, I have to be willing to do that too. And it starts with me. And I've always been that. And I saw the need. And when I saw the need, I was like, I know what the budget is for this. I know what this is going to cost. I know this is going to be something that's going to come up, and this needs to be consistent, and it's a sacrifice. And started making that sacrifice. Then I see other ministers start making that sacrifice and say, hey, oh, I did this for you, baby. I did this for you guys. And let me tell you, like, that makes the world turn. Like, when I tell you, like, when you're really in it for good reasons, like, the blessings, they come and they don't just come. They come in floods. And so you really have to get to a point where you are grateful despite it. You can put a smile on your face like my father did as a garbage collector. He put a smile on his face. And it's just the fact of just getting to a point of gratitude. And the course of life is deeper than that. I mean, I'll talk more on chapter 2 in our next episode. But I really just hope that you guys have enjoyed this podcast. I hope you guys have had an opportunity to listen to my story in depth. I hope, and I say to this day, like, all of the people, and I'm not just talking about people I'm saying I'm going to honor stuff, all of the people, whatever it means to be an excellent steward, it means that I still have to take upon all of the mistakes I've made and make some sort of serious correction, because the young people are going to find out anyways. Young people are going to find out when you're serving in ministry. There's no way you should be serving in ministry as if you are spotless. That's ridiculous. No one's spotless. No one is. No one is. If anyone, the only way that you can be spotless is through the Holy Spirit and God's covering. That's the only way you can be deemed spotless. But the truth is, we have to get up every single morning, and posture our hearts to the Lord every single morning. Humble ourselves, get on our knees and pray and honor Him. Can we say that everything that man has built has always been built to glorify God? No. It's just the truth. It's like the course of life, me writing that book. I initially wrote that book under the supervision of the Holy Spirit, guiding my hands in every word. But at the same time, if I was not listening to the Holy Spirit and soughting out and really, really waiting on Him to guide me, I would have written the book and saying, man, I'm not married yet. Oh, I'm so lonely, all of this stuff. And it would have just been about me. It would have just been about my flesh. It would have been about all the things I want, and not about all the things that God has done, what God is doing, what I've seen God through, how incredible my mom is, how incredible my father is, how incredible the people are that are around me. And that is the beauty, my friends. That is the beauty about the course of life. Because when you look back and you take that pause, you start seeing the positive things. You start seeing that The rejection was for your protection. You start seeing that the mystery of the thing that you never understood, how you got through it all, was because you were being carried. God carried you through. So check out my book, and I hope I have good news for you guys. By the time we catch up with the next podcast, I hope we get to talk about the single release that's coming up. There's some things in store. I would like to bring on someone on the show, but I'm going to wait some more episodes. I'm still getting my footing with this podcast. I find myself talking a lot, and I don't know if it's rambling. I haven't gotten a bunch of comments yet about the podcast, whether or not it's good or whatever the case may be. Look at me, I'm running out now. I'm supposed to be finishing up. I had a commercial break, and now I'm running out. But I just really want to leave that with you, is that getting to the place where you understand what that means, of steps of gratitude leading you to your victory and song. It starts with you taking those first steps of pauses. And it starts with you deciding that every single day. And I know it sounds hard, but you have to know how to maneuver, through all of this now. And for the young persons who don't know, connect with people who do. Connect with your youth pastor. Talk to your youth pastor. Go and talk to your Grammy, who's the faithful servant in the church. Go and talk to somebody who you know may understand, or assume that they will understand. I just want to say thank you guys so much for your support. All those who've been listening so far, I just want to say thank you so much for your support. I know this has been a while coming in. I don't know when it's going to get shorter, but this was a lot. This was a lot longer than I expected. I was really trying to cut it down, but I just felt like for this episode, this really need to be heard. Like, people really need to know that there's a lot to the meat of our journey that a lot of people don't say. A lot of people just walk through the grid every single day, but they don't talk about it. So blessings to all of you. And I pray that you guys have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your night. And I just hope this encourages you, lift some of your spirits. Hope it doesn't leave any of you dampened. I just wanted to say, just keep a smile on your face. Walk through this life. Stay humble. Keep a smile on your face and keep on pushing. You just never know what God has in store for you. God bless. There, I had it there this whole time. It's just I was waiting. What was I waiting for? I was waiting.